A trash pick no-start Craftsman chainsaw. Hello and thank you for stopping by. Today I will show you how I go about getting it to run. This is a Craftsman 20-inch 46cc chainsaw. As I mentioned, this is a trash pick. It's in rough shape, looks like it was used, abused. And today I'm going to show you the steps I take in going about getting it to run. In addition to showing you the tips and tricks I use to get this running, this is also a tool or more of a parts review for a Hipa carburetor. I normally buy my own parts and my own equipment, and I've been buying Hipa parts for a while, and for this chainsaw, Hipa sent me a carburetor kit. Once we have it installed, we'll see how well it does. So let's get started. First order of business is I'm going to take this cowling off. This is held in on this saw by, let's see, 1, 2, 3 screws, and 1 screw's already missing. So somebody was in here once before. Let me get this off and I'll show you what we have. The screws that are in here are Torx screws, and in this case it was a T20 Torque. It looks like you might be able to use a regular screwdriver on that also. First thing we notice right off the bat is this filter. This filter, as dirty as it is, guaranteed the carburetor on this unit is plugged. So let's take this filter off and see what that carburetor looks like. This just has 2 common head screws. I have worked on Craftsman chainsaws before. This is the first time on this particular model. I don't think it'd be too much of a difference in there, but we'll see. This filter's a big difference from what I've worked on before. Now, looking at this filter's acting more of a choke than it is as a filter. Inside the carburetor, it doesn't look all that bad from this point. Okay. Before I start cranking on this again, I want to take this plug out, see what the plug looks like, and I want to put a little fuel in there to lubricate that piston. Okay, the right one right off the bat. This doesn't look like it's carboned up. Somebody was definitely in here before, and it looks like they didn't have a spark plug wrench. See the markings on that plug? They used something to get it out. So somebody was playing around in here once before. Get a little fuel in there. That's what I forgot. Before I go any further, I want to pull this muffler off, because as clogged up as that fuel filter was, it was probably burning rich, and this muffler could very well be clogged. If this muffler is clogged, it's going to either run poorly or not run at all. So I'm going to remove the screw, pull this muffler off, and check the spark arrestor that's in there. And on this muffler, you need a 3/8 socket to get that nut off. See what we have here. This looks like there's something in there holding it back, a screw, a Torx screw, I can't tell. So let me get this muffler off and I'll show you what I find. These are screws holding it in. Alright. You know, I'm gonna see it. Okay. I'll put this back together off camera so you don't have to watch that. While we have this off, what we could check is to see if that piston is scored. With the muffler off, we can check on the side. So I can get the camera in there. There you go. And I don't see any scoring on that piston, so that's a good sign. A couple things will cause the scoring in there. One, if the fuel mixture isn't right, not enough oil in there, it'll cause it to burn up. Or if you have too much oil and you're burning too rich, you'll get carbon deposits and they'll break off and they'll cause a scoring. I'm going to get this back together, put some fuel in the top, give it a crank, and see if I get any combustion. If not, then I'm going to check for spark. An easy way to check for compression is, while this is together, with the spark plug out, put your thumb over and pull on it. You can feel it pulling in. I didn't feel that much pull on it. So that may or may not be a problem, but we'll find out once I get this all together. Off camera, I did two things. I cleaned up all that debris that was in here. Normally I wouldn't clean this up until I got the saw running, but I have the muffler off, so I cleaned up around the fins, all the spots I can't get to while the muffler's on. Figure it was off, I may as well clean it now. I'm going on the premise, we're going to get the saw running. And also, I put some gas into the tank, swished it around a little bit and dumped it out to make sure there wasn't any debris in that tank. And I often get questioned, what do I do with the old gas? This is gas from a lawnmower that I had to work on. And what I do with this gas is that I use it to clean parts up with. I'm working outside, you got to be very careful doing this. Make sure you're keeping it away from more flame and that spark arrestor. And even though that spark arrestor looked fairly clean, I did burn it out anyway. You want to make sure you're keeping flame away from the gas. You want to make sure you don't have anything hot that you put it into that could fall into the gas. If you're doing this, it's at your own risk. This is what I do. I'm not saying this is what you should do. Let me get this back together and I want to see if this is going to fire up. This is just a tip. When you're putting this muffler back on, it'd be easier to stand the saw up on its back like this and drop it in this way and put the screws in. Makes it a lot easier trying to get those two screws back in. And while I had it this way, I had a little better lighting. I was able to see that piston. There is some scoring on that piston, so we may have a compression problem on this. Okay, I gave it a little bit of gas in there. Used the turkey baster. Let's give it a couple of drops. We'll see if she sputters or not. On, off, it's on. Let's see. Just cover on to hold it. Well, here's another problem. Okay, I guess. Well, before we could check that out, we have to take care of this. Oh, let's get this off. I may be doing all this for nothing. This is held on by 3 screws. And again, one was missing. So somebody was definitely in here before me. So either they didn't hit on the problem, or the problem was too much to resolve, and that could be that compression. Now this over here, why is it not going back and forth? I think it's just a question of it being dirt in there. So I'm going to pull the screw out. You got to watch for the spring not coming out. Going to see if I have to clean it up. At the very least, I'm going to put a little oil in there. I'm going to clean this up in here. And again, normally I wouldn't do this until the saw was running, but I have it off. I'm there, so I'm saving a step if it does run. So let me get this back on, and then we'll try starting it up again. Okay, just want to give a little warning over here. If you never pulled one of these starters apart, when you take this one out, there's a spring in here, but underneath there's a coiled spring. I was holding it down because I didn't want it to shoot off, and I turned for a second and that thing just shot right out. You got to be careful that it doesn't hit you in the face, hit you in the eye. When it was all disassembled, I noticed that the spring had rust on it and some debris. So I wiped it down, oiled it up, and I played around to get it back on. I didn't video it. It took me a while to do it. I haven't done one of those in quite some time. Maybe I'll do a video. If I get some requests, I'll do a video on taking one of these apart and putting it together at another date. But I just want to warn you, if you take this apart to put a little oil in there to see what's going on, be careful that spring, because it will recoil right out of there. So now I'm going to put this back on and we're going to try to start this up. I have it back together. Now we'll see if it's going to sputter. Again, there's just a little bit of gas I put in the cylinder. Okay, and it's just a little bit of the gas I put into the cylinder. Let's see what happens now. And we just have a little bit of the gas that was into the cylinder, nothing in the tank. Okay, we know we have spark compression because we saw it going. Next, we're going to get into that carburetor. Oof. But that was never going to happen. Like I mentioned earlier, this is the first time I worked on this particular model, Craftsman. This carburetor, they make it a little difficult to get it off. It looks like all this should be removed, the handle. I was trying to remove as few parts as possible. Now, there were two screws over here. One here and one here, and they require the what's this over here, the 5/32 Allen wrench again. This one came out easy. This one was a little tough. What I did when I had it cocked, and I just kept screwing it out to get it out of the plastic. Once this was removed, I might have to take this all apart anyway to install the new carburetor. The carburetor was behind here. Now, this doesn't have a purge bulb. And this is what we're looking at as far as the carburetor. This hose had to be replaced. You can see how it just breaks. There was a crack in this hose over here, and this is very brittle. So the hose had to be changed. The carburetor, all in all, I mean, it's dirty on the outside. Inside the carb, doesn't look all that bad, but this debris getting past the filter, air filter, probably inside here. This is where it has to be cleaned. When I'm working on my units, I change the pump and the gaskets under here, clean them out, and they generally work very well. You see the debris in there if the camera's picking it up. And once in a while I'll catch one where I really have to go over it twice. But carburetor kit that Hipa sent me is listed for $13. The rebuild kits go anywhere from $5.98 to $15 depending on where you buy them. Sometimes they're on sale. Hipa has a sale on them right now. I believe they're $5.98. That's as of this video. And this one over here now, this is where you have your adjustment screws. And these screws here require, if you're using the same carburetor, they require the spline screwdriver. You see that? This is your idle adjustment. This is your low and your high speed. This is the first time diving into a carburetor. It's worth taking it apart, seeing what it's all about. But if you want to get it done quickly and get it over with, it's going to take you as long to get the parts as it does to get the carburetor as far as shipping. And for a few dollars more, you have a new carburetor. Now, I've used Hipa several times in the past, never had a problem with them. Once I had to make a little adjustment on the carburetor that fit on a Husqvarna lawnmower. But other than that, they have worked fine for me. You will see posts where people say the aftermarket carburetors are no good, the quality control, such and such. That's true. Maybe I just was fortunate enough and I was lucky when I got mine. I don't know. But for me, it's worth taking a shot. Even if you catch one that's not right. Hipa's a good company to deal with. Whenever I had questions, they responded to me quickly. There wasn't any delay. And so far, I have nothing but good to say about them. So let's see what you get for $13. Let's open this up. Get this camera ready here. Okay, now if you were repairing this, you would have to buy a new fuel line. It's not a big deal, but you would have to get it. So you have a fuel line in here. Okay, now a few goodies in here. Let's see what we have. Okay, we have the carburetor, which is what we were expecting. We have an air filter that looks a lot different than the one that's there. It feels like a nylon. Okay, I don't know if this will work better, but we'll see. You have your gaskets, 2 new gaskets. You have a new fuel filter. And a new plug. Now, I have to say, the plugs that I get with the carburetors, I haven't used them yet. I've been sticking to the name brands on them. But once we get this running, I'm going to put this in. And when I cut wood with it, I'm going to see how this holds up. My eye looked like it was a little different diameter. Okay, so I'm putting this back in. I'm working outside. I don't want to lose any of these pieces. This hose, I guess it's the same. It looks like it might be a little thicker. Okay, now this carburetor, this is what I like. This is the old style where when you want to make the adjustments, it's just a regular screwdriver. This is how all carburetors used to be. You just needed a screwdriver to get in there. A few years back, I guess EPA didn't want people to adjust their carburetors or whatever the deal was on them. Carburetors started coming either with the spline, the Pac-Man, all kinds of crazy stuff. And you have to buy all these different screwdrivers if you have different pieces of equipment. Let's see now. Is there a name on this carburetor? Okay, it's got a number, but no name. This carburetor is a Zama. Let's see, as far as the setup, do they look the same? Sometimes they might be just a little off where you got to monkey around with them. Okay, here we go. This looks the same on this end. Let's see. They have a plastic stop on this one, a Zama. They have a metal over here. You have your choke. Let's see over here. You have your choke, okay. Everything else looks the same. You're looking good. Okay, so we'll put this back on. This little tab is just to hold it in place. And let's see now. All right, I'm going to have to put the new fuel line in. I'm going to do that before I do anything else. To get the fuel lines in, this is what I do. There's a couple different ways you could go about this, but I find it this one here, paired snips or paired dikes, it's a little easier. You want to cut this in half just to narrow it down a little bit. We'll see why in a moment. We have to get this whole fuel line out. Let's get this out of the way. Let's keep this from getting dirty. This we'll put over here. Let's pull this right out. Okay, we got the old fuel filter and the fuel line. See if we can pull that through. Oh, they're breaking off in there. Okay, that was good. Didn't break off. Now here's the tricky part. These fuel lines have a thicker diameter than the hole. That's what keeps it from leaking. So you cut it narrow like this to get it into the hole. Then once you get it into the hole, you have to pull it through. What I do, that I found helps, is that when I'm pulling it down through the gas tank, I also pull up a little bit, and it kind of stretches it out. So you're pulling in both directions, but you're pulling down harder, and it'll go through a little quicker. If it's really stiff, sometimes I'll put a little bit of motor oil on it, or the 2-cycle oil on it, and it just helps out a little bit. So see that hole down in there? Oh, this is going to be tough, this one. All because I have all this stuff in the way that I didn't take off. I had to put this camera down. I'm going to use the plies to push this through. I have it all together. One thing, this air filter doesn't fit. The air filter that they sent with this, see down here, there's an opening, and it just doesn't fit right. I'm putting it on right now just to start this up. I want to demonstrate some wood cutting with it, but I won't be cutting any wood because we'll definitely get debris inside this carburetor. I have fresh gas in here. I kept the original plug. We'll see if that starts it or not. And carburetor's attached, the new carburetor, the new fuel line, and let's give it a go. Let's see what we have. Wow. Right out of the box, without any adjustment, that saw started up. It is idling too fast. Got to bring the idle down. That chain shouldn't be spinning when you're in idle, and I may have to tweak it. But like I said, that air filter isn't the right filter. I don't want to suck in any debris that I might have missed when I was cleaning it up. Once I get a new filter for this, I'll tweak the carburetor, make sure it's all set. But this is a no. That carburetor is from Hipa. I have my affiliate link down in the description for carburetors, not only for chainsaws, but for lawnmowers, snow blowers, weed whackers. And they have a great deal on chainsaw chains. Look up the chain size that you need, the pitch and everything, and check their site out. Not only do I have an affiliate link for Hipa, but I have my Amazon link down there, and you'll see a lot of Hipa products on Amazon. So either way, give it a try. So I appreciate you going to my Hipa site, and if you can't find what you need there, go to Amazon. And it does help with the channel. I do appreciate it. And let me know if you have any questions. Post your comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, found it useful, give it a like. It's a big help. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe. Hit that Joe Z button. And not to miss my new videos as I upload them, be sure to ring that bell. Until next time, stay safe.